Good morning, everyone. We're using the mic for LCTV, it is not like the sound system. Welcome to July Government Affairs meeting. My name is Rick Stabbard. I'm the chair of the Government Affairs Committee, along with Glenn Morris, who's not with us today. We do have quite a few people on Zoom. Well, I'd like to thank Marcy Gillespie, did I say that right? From the Town of Swampscott for helping us put this meeting together this morning. At Anthony's, which is such a great spot. It's gonna be sad when it goes, so all the popover restaurants seem to be disappearing. So come down here, have dinner, it's always great while it's still here. It's truly a gem, you can't beat the view. I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. Gino Cresta from the Town of Swampscott, acting town manager, Senator Crighton, Representative Armini, and Ward 3 Councilor Coco, Alinsug, who represents the area around where the pipe is. We also have State Rep Sean Reed with us this morning as well. So I'm going to ask the panelists to speak into the mic just so LCTV can have good. Was that good, Danny? Okay, and I'd also like to recognize Executive Director Ryan Newhall for a lot of work. Well, so a lot of times I'll speak on something and kind of go back and forth, but I know absolutely nothing about what's going on over there. Other than it's been a concern of folks from all around for many years because, you know, so much runs down that pipe. The only thing I knew as the Ward 2 Councilor was keep the drain clean at Floating Bridge Pond so that when the water level rises, runs down a big pipe down Eastern Avenue, that pipe there. So, I guess along the way, other things get picked up and, end up out in the ocean here. And so, PM this morning is going to explain, process that's in place now to help, make sure that what comes out of there is. So I'm turning over to Senator Crighton, who will, kind of lead the way and, enlighten us as what's going on with this. So thank you.
Good start. No, it's an honor to be here. Thank you to Rick and Ryan for putting this together in the chamber, for everyone participating here today, both in person and remotely. This is a topic that we can talk about for hours and hours and hours. So I'm going to try to give like a really high level overview on the history. I will ask my fellow panelists to correct me when I speak. Like I said, this gets very complicated, and I do want to give a shout out again to the chamber and the business community rolling their sleeves up on what is an environmental issue, but also it's an economic development issue. Certainly a quality of life issue. We all care about the people, certainly for ourselves. And I also want to give a shout out to the mentor to name them, may forget some, but certainly friends of Lynn and Armini, as well as Sage King Beach community members throughout the district that have been concerned with this for a long time. I first started working on this as a staff level for Senator McGee back around 2006. So this is going on 20 years that I've been involved, and I'm sure many of you have been involved. It was around the time the Metropolitan Beach Commission was created by the legislature. We partnered with a group called Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. One of their big focus here has been water quality about their existence. They played a huge role in cleaning up Boston Harbor. It was before my time, obviously, but I'm told the harbor was absolutely filthy and a disgrace to the city, and now some of the cleanest water on the East Coast. So I say all that to say that this issue came up without really, the public awareness was there somewhat, but I think over the last 20 years, it's really grown, and that has helped build our momentum on this. Senator McGee, during his time in the legislature, was able to get some authorization for I think it was $30 million to fix the problem. I think, that's an authorization, so that's just allowing for the money to be spent. Over time, we realized that to convince any administration to actually spend the money, we're going to need to do the work ourselves. And we can't rely on any one governor or administration to roll up their sleeve. And I think that's when the communities of Lynn and Swampscott came together, along with our federal partners in the legislature. Recognize Sean Reed early, you're going to hear from Jenny momentarily. Also, Rep Cahill certainly has been involved throughout this, and Rep Capano before he left, and as I mentioned, Senator Egan was there as well. So fast forward to today, after, a year or so of really intense work from a task force. I credit, Gino and, Mayor Nicholson for really leading in this effort, to look at different alternatives, to treat the water. So I failed to mention earlier too, that it's kind of a two-part thing. You need to take care, of the landside issues with our water and sewer infrastructure. Make sure that we're not allowing bacteria to enter through those outfalls and to come out at CC's Road, outfall. But we also need to then treat the water to make sure that it's swimming. And we weighed, every possible option, and, one that, I think scored the highest and made the most sense in terms of, how long it takes to solve and how much it costs to solve, and its effectiveness, was our UV, plan, which is a pilot now that is ongoing. I'm gonna turn this over to Jenny, just so you don't have to listen to me ramble on and on. That's kind of just the history of it. But I don't know if Jenny wants to talk about the UV pilot and then pass it on.
Actually, I think Gino will talk about the details of the pilot itself.
Yes.
But I think what's really important and exciting about this is that this is so unusual. Two communities coming together to solve a problem using cutting edge technology. I mean, really, everyone here should give themselves a pat on the back for this. Because you don't see that often. You don't see that level of collaboration among federal, state, and local partners. And I'm the new kid on the block, so I just started on the task force in January of 23. They had already been working for about a year, and Mayor Nicholson, to his credit, and the town of Swampscott had already, gotten together and decided. My understanding is it was a finger pointing exercise before that. As to, who was to blame and, what we could do, and the two communities just decided, we're not doing that anymore. We're gonna sit down and figure this out. And that's really extraordinary. So part of figuring it out was, investigating what our options are. And so we explored an outfall pipe. We explored nanobubbles. As crazy as it sounds, it is actually a technology that's used in some places. Chlorination, that was another one. So really, both communities dug in, and all partners dug in. We met with federal EPA, we met with state DEP, to figure out, not just, figure out what's feasible, what's permittable, right? Because that's a big piece of it, what's permittable, and then what's fiscally responsible. So, after a lot of meetings and testing, we settled on, let's go with this, the UV pilot. There was a lot of community engagement, rather speak to that. And what you're seeing, I'm sure you've all been down, at least driven by, is the result. And we are in the process of collecting a lot of data. But while we're collecting this data, which is going to be incredibly helpful when we figure out, it's a pilot, so does this really work? Let's remember that. This isn't a foregone conclusion. We are collecting data. But in addition to collecting data, I don't know if you've noticed, flags are blue for the most part. There have been some red flags, which actually come spaces broke. But the flags are blue. There are kids swimming in clean water, not dirty water. And so that's pretty impressive and exciting. I'll hand it over to Gino now to talk a little bit about just kind of how the pilot actually works. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name is Gino Cresta. I am the interim town administrator for the Town of Swampscott. For the past 22 years, I've also been the DPW in Town of Swampscott. So I've been involved with contamination going on around the Kings Beach for quite some time. A little history back in 2015, Swampscott was hit with the consent decree. Yeah. Since the beginning of Kings Beach. We've been previously treating with high chlorine, we've been chlorinating. What we started doing was cleaning, repairing pipes. We thought was the issue in Swampscott, anyways, is we had 100-year-old sewer pipes on top of 100-year-old drain pipes. Sewer and drain pipes both had cracks in them because they got clay. While storage was getting into the drains and exfiltrating on the Kings Beach. So from maybe 2016 to 2020, Swampscott spent $8.5 million repairing pipes, both mains and laterals, to try to correct the problem. We still have a long ways to go. We're still going to continue repairing the pipes, but we knew we needed something a little faster. The catchphrase we're going to hear over and over today is collaboration. We wouldn't be here today without the collaboration of the City of Lynn and Swampscott. Obviously, without the help of the legislation here, this wouldn't have been done. We were able to secure $5 million between two communities, which we couldn't be more thankful for. But instead of us going separate ways, we started to work together. As he mentioned, there were other alternatives. UV, we decided was the way to go. So basically what we're doing now is we're stopping on both. There's two colors, one on the inside, one on the Swampscott. You see it right over my shoulder, there's two yellow signs on. The one on the left is the one called Swampscott. We're actually stopping the water before it gets down onto the ocean with whale walls. Once the water stopped, we're pumping it through a UV system, cleaning it, and then we send it out on the other side of the whale wall. We know it's working because testimony to the UV pilot on July 3rd, when we got a little bit of rain after the fireworks, most of the beaches were closed. And the blue flags was Kings Beach, which is amazing because historically it's been one of the two dirtiest beaches. We saw in Commonwealth, or we see it in the Nashville. So it's a 3-month pilot program. We're 10 weeks into it right now, so roughly halfway. So we can plenty of data working towards it, and then once we get the results, they'll all be published. We're publishing the results of the daily testing. And we'll reach out and to that fellow in the back, who was formerly part of the sewer infrastructure committee, as well as Liz Smith, very instrumental. So the daily testing is going on below.
I should have also mentioned, the Valley Bond from the mayor's office here as well, who's been a fruitful partner in this.
Good morning, everyone. You might be wondering why I'm here. You'd like to be special here in Cresta. But when I got the email from the chamber pages, when I got the email from the chamber, I was like, why do they want me there? Because the reason of which is important being representative of Ward 3, I get the calls, most of the calls, before it goes to the mayor's office. I was hoping the mayor will be here, but the first thing I heard from him is to please water my plants. He's on vacation now. I live directly across the street from him. So I'm glad Valerie's here with a lot of the data statistics as far as the city is concerned. But you know, to give a perspective of Senator Crighton mentioned years and years ago, I cannot count the number of times I've attended meetings about speech and pollution. There's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. So I'll go to a councilor's meeting, I go to a senator's meeting, I go to a state representative meeting, I go to a mayor's meeting. And you know, our wish is just, you guys need to be in one table having this conversation. So when I got elected in 21 and Jared was elected, I had one specific request from him. One of us should represent the city. And it so happened he is the representative of the city through that task force that representative meeting mentioned. So regularly I meet with him, I talk with him, I have one-on-one conversation with him, and report back to them all the emails I receive, all the phone calls I receive, all the feedback I get. And he will also update me through what he's been doing through the task force. So not only that, I'm so lucky and honored to have several Ward 3 residents here with me Bonnie Carr from Morby and Sandy Angeles, where regularly they also get feedback, so we share information and get relayed back to the task force. So that's my my role basically in the whole of organization. So for the phone calls, unfortunately, the negative phone calls I got are from that area within, and I know you guys should talk about the noise and some other concerns about the new system. But believe it or not, majority of the phone calls I got are good, are all positive, especially people who doesn't live in the area. Like, thank you for doing so. This new slide, my children just gone there for the first time since we moved here. So I really need, I'm so excited that we're having this conversation because my goal, the end goal is to have everybody satisfied our work.
I want to clarify, just one thing, if this is really confusing stuff. But I think it's important to talk about the difference between what's going on in Lynn and what's going on in Swampscott. So as Gino explained, you know, a big part of the problem is the 100-year-old clay pipes leaking. In Lynn, it's a different problem. And about 20 years ago, the City of Lynn invested 90 million, some really big number, to separate the pipes, which means the stormwater pipes from the sewage pipes. So those pipes in Lynn are already separated. And what we're finding through different testing, smoke and dye testing, CCTV exploration, is that there are some what we call illicit connections in the city, so that when the pipes were separated 20 years ago, some of them may not have been separated, or maybe in new construction or renovations, something got leaky, and that's where the leakage is coming from. But in both communities, and this is what makes this particular place different from others, is that because you literally have a brook running underneath the street, you have got an enormous amount of stormwater, which carries with it bacteria from fertilizer, dog food. So even if every pipe in Swampscott were fixed, and if every pipe will be lined at least, and every illicit connection in Lynn were found, the bacteria level would still be really high coming out of Stacy's Brook because of the stormwater collection, because of what gets collected in the stormwater. And the bacteria count cannot exceed 104, which is low. No, it is, it's pretty low. And so it's not a surprise that coming out of these two culverts, right, you get bacteria from stormwater that goes above that 104. So I just think it's important to talk about the different approaches in both communities, the different problems. The other thing is I want to underscore, Gino mentioned the 5 million that the legislature dedicated to this problem, 2.5 million for Swampscott, 2.5 million for Lynn, and the only from ARPA funding. And the only reason that we have that money is because of Senator. So I just, you have to give credit where credit's due. That's an enormous amount of money. Communities generally get that kind of cash, don't get that kind of money. So it is to your credit for delivering for us. So that's what I'm saying.
Those are helpful.
Yeah.
So one of the terms we throw out there quite often is the IDDE. So that's on the land side here, as Jenny just referenced, some of the different testing methods, cameras, smoke testing, I think dogs also used at some point centering around. So it's illicit discharge, detection and elimination, that's IDDE. So we will always, as Jenny said, be focused on the land side of things. No matter what that has to happen, that's a federal order and obviously what we should be doing anyway. So oftentimes constituents say, just fix the problem at the source. Doing that, even when we do that, the beach will still be unsocial. So I don't know if you should open up to questions, Rick, or Gino has anything.
I just wanted to mention one thing, probably the biggest misconception that I always like to address in forums like this is storm drains and sewer systems. So you have two pipes underneath the ground. One is taking the sanitary sewer and the other is taking the stormwater. So when you see the grates on the side of the road, a lot of people see people dumping stuff into those. And they can, that's the source, that's not. All our sanitary sewer goes to our pump station down on Humphrey Street, and then we pump it in the treatment. The breaks you see on the side of the road, which eventually works its way out to the ocean, whether it's going out walls on Kings Beach, Fisherman's Beach, Village Beach, or Crescent Beach. So you see somebody throwing stuff down there, when we refer to the dog waste.
Tackle.
People just take it on, put some big bags, they want to take it home with them down, you see them dropping it down. Eventually finding its way out to the ocean. We do clean storm drains on a regular basis. When the level builds up, it gets to that pipe, it's gonna get down to the ocean.
Yeah. So we'll open it up for questions. My first question is, and I drive this route on my way home every day, and I haven't seen a red flag up yet. You know, and I think about that every time I drive, hey, look, there's a blue flag, which isn't what we've seen in previous years, so apparently it is working. But when this is decided that, yeah, this is it, this is the tool we're gonna go with. And right now you see the fences and the pipes and all, what's the permanent installation gonna look like if this is, the process that's gonna be decided?
I mean, I think the tech, sorry.
Jeez.
You know, I think task was starting to look at the results, you know, analyze all that data moving forward. The site is a challenging part and the money is a challenging part, and that's going to involve a site selection process, certainly. Involve, you know, a lot of work on our end to try to find resources to build a permanent facility. So right now, this is a pilot, and some pilot is trying things out and learning from it. You know, understanding on days like today, how is this rain going to affect the turbidity of the water coming out, which for UV traditionally has caused problems. So it's not a silver bullet, certainly, but if we can make that beach suitable, I think right now it's been only 1 out of 20, actually, that might be old, but like 20 days or so, like that is actually. I had a reading that would close at the Stacy Brook source. So long term, it's gonna be a public process, need to find a permanent site, obviously. And I think with that permanent site, some of the issues that you've heard from constituents on with regard to noise and air pollution can be solved with a more permanent. I don't know if that's in line with.
All I would say is that what you're seeing down there is not what a permanent site looks like. So don't get that into your head. It will be a structure of some sort, and the technology, the equipment will be housed within the structure. And as the senator said, there needs to be a site selection process to figure out, you know, where something like that would even go. And then obviously there's the permitting, there's funding, and in this funding environment, you know, we're a little nervous but optimistic. But yeah, I just want to caution, don't think that that's gonna stay where it is and look the way it looks.
Great. Any other questions?
Rick, so if I understand it, the water gets stopped. The water gets stopped and then it's pumped through this machine, the other machine, and how does that work? What does it do? I'm curious to how light bomb this actually kills the bacteria.
I'll give you that.
Get your stats right.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I wasn't clear enough. So there's a wheel wall on the Lynn side, there's wheel wall on Swampscott side. So the drop and flow coming down from Stacy Brook from both communities. There's 2 pumps in here, and the pumps pump the water that's being stopped into the UV unit here, and it's being treated with ultraviolet light, which kills the bacteria. Then it is pumped back onto the other side of the Swampscott culvert. So both the water from both is getting pumped out on the Swampscott side afterwards.
Tank.
The tank.
Yeah.
So if you're driving down Eastern Ave. On Humphrey Street, it's the tank on the left-hand side, right after Portland.
Any problems with too much water flowing?
We have not had too much water flow, we've been very fortunate, but that is one of the reasons we only built the rear walls up 3 feet high. Because if we were to get heavy rains, storm, we have the water to go up over the rear wall, so it doesn't back up into the system.
My name is Zach. My question is, you guys probably answered this, I apologize, but how can progress be measured? Like, how are you guys gonna measure the system's working or what it means for you? And then also, would you guys incorporate like, safety for as far like swimming, because people see that the water is cleaner, more people wanna go swimming, you know, like in the summertime, it's higher rate of drowning. So how would that, because that's like, environmental justice and it's public safety, so would you guys incorporate that in some way?
I just feel like that this is, I cannot count the number of times, I've attended meetings, and questions, that specific questions always get asked. And that's the reason why data is important for this, so that's why meeting is constantly happening to address every, issue and things we have. I do encourage everyone to go to the Lynn City website because we have a section there just for free speech. And it gives you updates, minutes of their meetings, minutes of their meetings, updates they've done, videos, articles, links and documents, datas are there. It will probably answer a lot of your questions. And if you cannot find the questions you need, call these 3 people.
Valerie, I know that you're tracking the data and all of that data is public, so you're, it's. Keeping that bacteria level below 104 is success. But Valerie, do you want to just mention where people can access the data?
Yeah, so we do daily sampling we do daily sampling, Gino can speak. So daily sampling and all the data is online. We have an interactive dashboard we can make, and we also have it on a spreadsheet, so it's really accessible. We talk about bacteria level, air quality measurements, which is already fine.
And just quickly, the flagging piece, it has historically been an imperfect system. The data doesn't get there in time for the flags to be updated in real time. It's the lab can't analyze it that fast. So it has been a struggle for us, in policymakers and administrations to say, we should get rid of the flags altogether, but that could put people's health in jeopardy as well. So I mean, generally, when there's a significant rainstorm, it's more likely the bacteria count will be highest, the flow of water there. I would say that the new system that DPH has put in place, if any one of the 3 outfalls on the beach exceeds a level, the whole beach is closed, or you get red flags for the whole beach, which again, people may see the red flag and say, the system's not working. That's not necessarily the case. It could have been an errant sample from Kimball Street and impaired. So there are other sources that unrelated to Safety Brook that could cause the beach to be closed, where it's probably likely that if you swim in Safety Brook that day, you would be held harmless. But DPH at this point, that's the system we're working with. So, if you see a red flag or it's rained in the last 6 to 12 hours, maybe express some caution there.
Just real quickly, Valerie, so the data, what we're doing is we test the Lynn influent and the Swampscott influent on a daily basis, and then the effluent. So we know it's contaminated before it's going into the UV, and then we're testing the lines for the output. Probably measuring that success.
I think that was.
My question is the closing of Eastern Avenue early in the morning during commute time. I consider that to be a detour. A detour should have a sign indicating where the turn is if you cannot access Eastern Avenue. There has never been another detour sign indicating where that very difficult turn is to get back onto Eastern Avenue. That is a horrendous turn to make for commuters in the morning. Would it be marked beginning of detour, end of detour? Not everybody knows the roads.
I just want you to, before it breaks. So now you know, this is a question or exclusively there, it's me, so this week I'll bring the parking director, who will look around, who will see, observe, and mention to her about your people.
This is, but this is not real.
Oh, Swampscott, there you go, Gino. Somehow we're late.
So it's never been permanent shutdown. The only time that blocked that section of roadway is when it was an emergency. So we had a couple of issues with the pumps. We had to block off the one section you're talking about. But for the most part, those lanes are always open. So
But Gino, why isn't there a sign that's a very difficult turn for a person to make? And there's no sign, or there was no sign when Eastern Avenue was closed, that was part of the detour.
we'll do better.
Thank you.
Hoping.
That's all I'm asking.
So history, I'm gonna be the flying kind of frame. Since its inception, those of us who live in the immediate machines have had to live with the diesel engine 24/7. And that means it's like an 18-wheeler underneath your bedroom, 24/7. It doesn't stop. And I'm gonna try to do as many bullet items as possible because a whole slew of them involved with this from the very beginning, where the list of abutters that were notified was very clear. Other people who are not here today, but in the neighborhood, went to meetings and were, I wouldn't say dismissed, but it certainly didn't seem like their concerns about air quality and this were taken seriously. Right now, all banners asking, please, begging you, do not run these machines at night so we can get some sleep. We can't have windows, we can't open the door. I know this sounds forgiving and it's only 3 months. However, that constant drone is there all the time. We have people in our neighborhood who their bedrooms to the back of the house. We have people in our neighborhood who put fans in all their front doors so that they don't hear this. As far as the traffic is concerned, not to contradict you, but the day that the crane was there, and it was another day that that section of road was closed, it was in the police detail. And we were concerned that initially when we met with Mary Nicholson and Val, Jenny, I don't know if you were at the corner.
No.
I know Smith was there, but we asked for police detail and we were told, we guaranteed that there would be police detail every time there was construction. That did not happen. It did not happen very, very frequently. And what we found was that the wording was changed from we guarantee police detail to we request police detail, which meant it wasn't there. Now it's got to the stage when we issue a complaint. Either in Swampscott or Lynn, we're told it's been given to the legal. So we have no voice whatsoever, and I can tell you, even though it's a small number of households, it's less than 10. It's constant, it's 24/7, on an 18-wheeler underneath your bedroom window. And I just feel like This wasn't the solution. I know that you're talking about the blue flags, the 2 weeks that the machines were shut down because of seaweed getting in them. There were blue flags for those 2 weeks when those machines weren't working. So the difference between having the machines working and having the machines not working during the season at peace has not been significant as far as the blue and red flags are concerned. The 2 days where Pierce and the other street were over 4, it was 104 and 107, they aren't being affected by this machinery at all. And lastly, we've been honest by town officials, by state officials, that would not be the permanent location. That location would not be permanent location. And we have yet to see any plans for what would happen instead of that. So those are kind of my bulleted plans. We've been, the credibility of the pension that we receive, my mind keeps going to other bulletin items. We've lived here 30 years, and Kings Beach in Lynn has been raped twice, and that was in 1997. So we've asked Mayor Nicholson to get PCR out. They're out there doing the hot beach, so their beach, and is never cleaned. And if you're in the beach, then do it in every aspect. Thank you. Sorry.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I can't answer all of those, but I'll do my best to fill in. So, certainly, you know, anytime there's a major pilot program, construction, anything like that, there are negative impacts, and none of us should at any point take any of those lightly, whether it's 1 abutter or 10 abutters or 20 abutters, right? So I know just being part of this process, not always at the meetings, folks went out door to door in the neighborhood. But I do believe that your voice has been heard, and I'm sorry if that's not the perception that you get, because you've certainly heard your voice loud and clear, and I appreciate you for your community. I do think that the city and the town are doing all that they can in terms of the air quality by looking the air quality tests. The town blankets, I don't know if they've made an impact. They're looking to get more there. I would encourage folks to go down there that have not been down there just to experience this firsthand. And that's just you walking by is different than living above it, certainly, and at times of night. I understand your frustration there. I've been to your home. I know how close it is there, and that beautiful balcony as well. So I think we're doing all that we can to try to mitigate the negative impacts that will come with this 3-month pilot. As far as some of the specifics, probably more the city thing to answer, so I don't want to get out of my lane here. I do think in terms of the site selection, from our end of this task force, has always been committed to having an open process with both the Town of Swampscott and the City of Lynn. We have not ruled out any locations, nor have we narrowed down any location. If anyone has been following this, anytime you deal with 2 municipalities, and I love both of them, getting to represent both of them, it is very, very challenging to come to a consensus on almost anything. We've had some really difficult times here, but that's government doing its work and finding compromise and coming together to accomplish a shared goal, and some give and some take. So I think it's premature for any of us to assume where this is going to go. Not to mention where the funding is going to come from. This is a concept that we needed to prove. We needed to do that for all the work that's built up to this pilot, and now this pilot here. Otherwise, this beach just never be peaceful. I mean, that's the end of it all. In terms of the flags, again, the flags aren't indicative of how our pilot is working. It's indicative of the overall quality of that beach. And the raking, I will circle back with DCR. We've been told in the past that they can't get the group down there. Obviously, Swampscott gets their group down there. So I don't know if they need the easement to use the ramp, whatever. But certainly that's something we can advocate for or more. But I don't know how much of an impact it would have on the facts here.
And just to follow, when we did meet with Mayor, so he said specifically, it will not be here. That's number 1. Number 2, as far as the noise level is concerned, it is at an illegal level. The ambient decibel level in all of the neighborhood, I walk around at midnight and took readings with a decibel meter, is between 38 and 42 on a scale of 100. Legally, any project like this can go 10 decibels above ambient. Right now, we're at, in our house, we're at between 58 and 62, which is 20 over. Ambient, if you're in between the two machines at 20 feet, this is what they're talking about. Ambient plus 10 at 20 feet away from the machines. At 20 feet away from the machines, the decibel level can go up, it's between 68 and 71. So it's not like we're complaining about a low level. If this is an illegal decibel level, in every aspect.
Well, address the illegal aspect. We're not really sure that it is, but we know the DEP has been contacted. They're on vacation, I don't believe it, he's on vacation this week. They'll be coming out next week to do all the testing to find out if we are exceeding those levels. We are trying.
And I know you're trying, it's just, we're living that.
And I'm definitely not to mention that in any aspect. The other thing I just want to address is the police details. That wasn't being disingenuous on our part. We're having a town-wide problem filling details. Tried to fill the detail. Well, they couldn't fill it and we blocked off the road, so it wasn't like cars were traveling. It's just totally blocked off, so even if there was a police officer there, he would have just been standing in front of barricades.
Well, the problem is cars are detouring and now are where there used to be a one-way road this way. Now there were two lanes going left and right. They were going all over the place during those mornings when the roads were blocked. It was.
Okay, so they're talking about the other side.
It was a Lynn side of it.
Any other questions?
I'm Margaret Wiggles. I'm also a resident of Beach and I've been there for 25 years. Brings my daughter walking on the beach every day and haven't been on the beach in 2 years. Won't even walk my dogs on the beach, so it brings my heart that the neighborhood is like this. So I'm really happy about the plan. Although I understand that there are snafus, but my question really is about the follow-up. So we're gonna have to do tremendous. So that means there's not that much time left. So we'll have to look at why did we have sort of a plan A, B, C. We understand it's government. So that's.
What's that?
Hard to think. I'm a college professor. And bureaucracy, but I worry about the fact that, well, then, like we do in academia, a lot of data and we're not acting on it. And so why isn't there, it feels like a lot of opportunity to me, that there's not ongoing conversation happening now, maybe there is. But, sort of, plan A, B, C kind of thing.
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down, unfortunately, like most things with government and capital investment, it's the money, right? So it's us doing our work as legislators to convince the administration, our congressional delegation. To they can't convince the federal administration. It's challenging. It's over $25 million, which was, brought together to begin with. And it's gonna be more than that, right? So it's finding the resources needed. So this is us building the case. So like we were confident we're gonna have good results, but we just are getting the results now. So it's us talking with the secretary, talking with the Haley administration. I mean, we've been a huge thorn in their side and every governor's side for a long time, so it's not like they're not hearing it. But I think we need to let them hear the information. And we're communicating with them throughout. I mean, the mayor has been my wife, and a lot of times this issue. So we're working it just may not be in public. And the site location thing obviously is going to take time. That's a local process, but the money's going to take more time. So I think we need to regroup after we have the results. Continue the dialogue.
I think the senator's point of building use is super important. And I'm sure in academia, you can't build buildings until you actually have the case. And we've gone to our federal partners and time again, the two senators and our member of Congress have said, you need to show us a plan with the data before we'll even consider it. And so that's what this is about. That's why I think coming up with A, B, and C, when we don't have the data, it's in a little bit of putting the cart before the horse. And once we have the data.
That's what we're fortunate that I don't live at the end of the block that he lives on, so I'm not by the noise in the same way. But there are, and most of us are really supportive that we, support our neighbors as well. But there's lots of us that can write, that can call, that can speak, that can be, I think helpful at the table too. So don't forget about on the block.
Oh, believe me, we'll probably,
Yeah.
we'll need to. This is a large sum of money and also a permitting challenge. And so we will need many, many voices in this. So thank you for that.
Debate, very good.
Hey.
Good to hear it.
Good morning, I'm Norman, the social worker, educator, Lynn resident, I've been Swampscott resident between the two beaches. And I have this smell in my brain since the night. And at the end, but I can tell you it has significantly changed. Because now I live on Beach Road and I live there. And sometimes I feel something that is we're in the air, but I really appreciate every effort. My question is how we don't have that more community engagement in this. And I know it's political, I know it's budgeting, I know it's that, but there is a community engagement piece that I don't see here. And maybe because this is my first time. I invited myself because I care. And I know I'm a writer. I take picture of things that I see on the beach. I want to write the book. I want to present it to parents that work with their grandchildren and children because I do. And all the dog owner, I can see them every day. Some people pick up and dispose. Some people just throw it, and some people even take thousands of their plastic bags to their home. And that I care. As a social worker, but also as a resident, as a grandmother, as a friend, as the Lynn resident and owner. And I don't see that much reach out to the community. So my proposal to myself is that I want to do everything that I know how to do, is to write, is to take a picture and ask a question. Like the bottle of the Coke asking the owner that left it behind, why did you leave me behind? The shoes, I have picked up things that you would not believe from the beach. And sometimes I take it to my house. And my children, they're supposed to, my 4 years old say, no, don't take it home. Because the fish need the shell. And I think that just touched me. And I say, how can I contribute to this? So that's why I invited myself. And if anything that I can do to educate, to share this story, Lynn, Swampscott, I care. I care about both places I live in between. And I have lived a long time and I bring my children to it.
Well, we don't see him with comparatively me, because you should go over there right then and come back. So there's a lot of community engagement, like what I mentioned before I began, can I tell for I've attended, but it's still. Like questions have been asked, all questions have been asked, except the UV question. So I hope to see you. Just Google me, I'm very noisy online, so I always post events and meetings. We speak also, and also my colleagues here.
And then very nice, thanks. So
One issue that often comes up is the smell, the odor that people associate with beaches here generally. So that smells largely from paella algae, so that like reddish brown stuff that washes up. When we talk, I lived down there for 13 years, like it's really bad, particularly on hot days. It's unrelated or largely unrelated, to the bacteria coming out of the alcohol. So on this UV pilot, this is focusing on, eliminating that bacteria, making it so that it's well. Algae unfortunately will continue largely along Long Beach, which it improves access to like not harmful to your health, but it takes up a fifth of the beach on any given day, which obviously for a community like Lynn hurts access to one of our most valuable resources. So working on that PCR, and that's largely just we get an earmark here to tell them you have to clean it up. But it's kind of just staying on top of it. We don't have a source elimination ability on that yet. Like we're one of only a few places in the world that has paella algae, and it's just been scientists looked at it and found out problems.
Well, you've been collecting every. Food.
Heartbreaking to say, King Pete. I have a basic question about source elimination. I don't know if anyone has tested some of the ponds, like William Bridge Pond and Foster's Pond. They have some drain, I think eventually makes its way to the culvert here. I think that's an issue that has been addressed. I appreciate it if we figure out if that adding to this source. Solution. Anything that.
I thought you really does. Yes.
I can answer, not in the times of like. So they also treat them. So, Rick and I are colleagues at the city council before, so I was the commissioner of the Lynn Water Sewer Commission. And for the first time since last year, we have special section in our agenda specific to free speech. And in fact, we even opened it to community. To sit down, we were very focused with community input. The answer to short answer to the question is yes. So there's reports coming about testing all of the ponds. Both fish ponds, supporting this, we're down to every household, right? Despite every meeting we have, they will identify a specific house that had an issue, a legal connection, and we constantly go them to replace it. So Bartland's concerned very.
Maybe do lateral testing, but are we testing effluents of breathing pond? At this point.
All I know is we did testing. I didn't return.
Is there any way
I was the answer? Definitely, yeah. It's in the city website.
That's the water quality of the pond itself. Anybody want a muffin or something like that?
This has been a huge undertaking, it's taken many years to get to this point. I think the biggest outcome that we can have from this is the deafness. I certainly appreciate all the work that's been going beyond this room. I know that a lot of people have been very involved in that. I think I just wanted to ask one question and maybe one clarification. Because I think oftentimes you do hear folks say like, oh, well, even with IDDB, because of all the work, we're never going to fix the issue, okay? And that might be true, but the reality to me is that we don't know that yet. And I went to a Lynn Water and Sewer meeting about 2 months ago where they identified a hot spot near Thurgood Marshall School. And Coco was in that meeting. And I don't know if that's been resolved. The result of it was, I do know that when I asked, why are we just learning about this now? Their response was, this is the furthest we've chased up. So there is an expansive amount of research that we still have not done in that area in terms of identifying where other potential hotspots are. So my big push would be, foot on the gas, let's keep figuring this out, because if that's true for UV, and I think that we can pursue these things in parallel, we the utmost effort we can to make the whole system, whole sewer system, into which just work as designed to work first. Because we may not need
as aggressive of a UV treatment. It may cost taxpayers less to have a slightly smaller machine if we can do everything we need to do in order to get that done. The second thing I wanted to bring to the group as a question was, a lot of people have asked in our group, City of Kings Beach, where does the rainfall data that accompanies like the data that we've seen on the Lynn website? I think that people are very interested in how much rain the UV system can take before it shuts down, because it's clear that it shut down one day because on the beach it tested like at 2,500. But I think people are wondering, what is the cutoff? And so that way we know. So again, for our sakes, if we're trying to decide when we can and cannot swim at King's Beach, I can actually use rainfall data to know the day that the machine is running. Oh, it's only been 0.2 inches of rainfall. I know that the threshold is 0.5, so it's safe for me to go to the beach, because people are coming to us and asking, can we go to King's Beach? And my answer is still, no, I wouldn't swim there, because there are days where it does test poorly, and I don't know where that cutoff is. So I would love it if that information could be added to the spreadsheet. And that as part of your analysis, if we can make a clear threshold for folks as a guide as when it is safe to swim at the beach when the UV system is running. Thank you.
Quick, I just want to.
Sure.
First, Andrew, thank you for all your work on this, in City Beach. So on the IDD piece, absolutely, like, it's an ongoing thing, it's gonna be ongoing just by the nature of the test. I don't say perpetuity, but it has to keep going, right? So we're fully committed to that. On the testing, sure, on the data, we can absolutely over that. That's one of the reasons, again, for pilot. You get that threshold, shouldn't just be like, oh, did it rain last night? Like grass was wet, well, no, like, we should have a threshold in an alert system, so appreciate you raising that.
I would like to point out that those two. The really hasn't been that. And primarily this is a function of life. So I've been volunteering for months. And about 300 hours taking the data collection, the data reporting infrastructure, the dashboard. I've got probably close to 20,000 lines of software that I've written this pilot. And I have a full-time job. I have a 2-year-old. So I have a lot on my plate. And I fortunately can't have more of this data. Everyone is. So we are collecting them all, which purely a function as I'm a single person and only have so many hours and days to get it. Swampscott. I'm the rain data and the air pollution data guy, and I'm a scientist doing the system data. And to address Andrew's comments, the rain data are actually out there on the web. There are several rain gauges around town, including mine. I think Gino, you said you're primarily using mine, but there's a lot of them, and so you can judge data. And they're all whether under. So look, today you'll see that today we've had around maybe 0.5 inches. But to address the issue of rainfall versus bacterial counts in the system, I looked at the data, and generally there's not a correlation. They don't come together. There are, when we have a really huge rainfall event, yes, but June was pretty dry, and yet the bacterial counts, looking at the Swampscott testing data, the UV system, were not related to rain. There was a big event where the UV system did get overwhelmed. The turbidity went up, and it did not clean up on that one. But most of the time it works pretty well. The point is, you can look at the data, and it's really not, it's certainly not CSO work, because those are rare events. And it's probably not runoff into the sewer system, because we see very high and variable bacterial counts in the UV system and with data when there's no rain. I mean, the good news is June was a pretty dry month, so we get there's lots of very rich data set to do diagnostics to figure out what's driving. And
And the answer is primarily not rainfall, is what I can take from looking at. Data. I do maintain a spreadsheet, taking all the DCR data, all the Swampscott index data, all the rain data, it's all there, boom, anyone wants to look at it. And it does, so far, it's the story. And the story seems to point maybe to sewer issues from what I can tell. That's preliminary, and I wouldn't want to take that home. But, you know, when all the data are in, it's a very rich data set. And congratulations on the collaboration with the towns, it's fantastic. Really, but I think it will really hopefully serve as a diagnostic. UV treatment may or may not. Right now, I look at it in the front of my shoulders, but you know, that's down the road. But the message here is that there is a lot of data being collected, and it will point us in the direction we need to go, and that must be different from what people often assume. For example, you know, those bacteria, beach bacteria go up and down with rain events. Not so much. You know, you'd be surprised. You look at the data itself, do they go up and down together? Sometimes, but a lot of times. We'll leave it there, but if you have any questions about the data, I'd like to sort of such these.
Yeah, I just like to thank you for the list you're sitting. But yeah, so all the rainfall data is public. His sensors, I will put down slightly from where it's where it doesn't bring it to. And on top of that, the air quality sensor. In advance, the curating all this data into a dashboard. All this.
Hey, is there anyone on the panel who would like to close? Closing remarks?
I think the conversation should continue, the discussion, meeting, like